Hope you have found this video useful. The best way to support the channel and ensure you don't miss our next upload is to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Part 37.19 Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back, dear listeners, to Sufi Essence with Hammad Syed. We commence part 37.19 of our deeply immersive study of Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks. This section immediately details the decisive, courageous action taken by Prophet Ibrahim following his deliberate separation from his people. Verses 91 through 95 narrate the confrontation between Abraham and the lifeless idols, culminating in their spectacular destruction and the subsequent return of the idolaters. This physical act of breaking the idols is the most powerful external expression of the sound heart kalb salam mentioned previously, demonstrating that intellectual conviction tofakar must lead to uncompromising physical and spiritual action. This narrative provides the blueprint for the sklik, spiritual, sticker on how to decisively break all personal and collective idols, whether material possessions, desires, or false attachments that prevent complete pure worship, ibda, of Allah alone. Kanzul Iman, Quran, Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks. Chapter 37, verse 91. Then he inclined towards their gods and said, "Will you not eat?" Abraham, having achieved the necessary solitude, uzla, now approaches the objects of his people's worship to commence his direct confrontation. Then he inclined towards their gods and said, "Will you not eat?" Faraga, ilch glahatahim, fokwila alb ta kulin. Linguistic analysis of faraga, ilch glahatim. The verb raga means to incline or approach subtly, swiftly, or secretly, indicating a strategic, purposeful movement. The use of this verb emphasizes Abraham's cunning and prophetic wisdom wikmah in executing his plan. The action is covert, yet profoundly intentional. Glahid him their gods is used contemptuously, highlighting the fact that these objects held no real divinity, only the illusion of it granted by the people. The preposition ilch towards indicates a direct, focused intention, unlike the passive movement of the people, demonstrating the calculated nature of the prophetic dua. Sufi perspective on confronting idols. The act of inclining toward the idols symbolizes the sklik's need to confront the root causes of spiritual compromise. Before one can break the idols, one must first engage them intellectually. Abraham uses mockery based on the idols, an ability to satisfy the most basic needs and to show their utter dependence and worthlessness. For the Sufi, this eating symbolizes worldly sustenance rizq and the relentless demands of the nafs, the lower soul. If the idols cannot provide for themselves, how can they provide for others? This confirms the sole provider is Razak, the provider. The spiritual teaching is that the seeker must first dismantle the inner logic that lends power to false attachments, idols of greed, power, vanity, before physically detaching from them. This confrontation with the physical idols prepares Abraham for the greater sacrifices later in his life, such as offering his son, by demonstrating complete submission to Oljunk. The theological significance of the mockery, the challenge, "Will you not eat?" Alba, Tai, Cullen, is a brilliant piece of irony, forcing the observer to recognize the inanimate nature of the worshipped objects. Since the people left food offerings, Abraham emphasizes the utter absurdity of worshipping objects that cannot even perform biological functions. This highlights the concept that only a living God, Al-Ka, who is self-sustaining Al-Qayyum, is worthy of worship. The physical incapacity of the idols is the clearest sign of their nullity, proving the perfection of Algonk, the self-sufficient, needing nothing. Legal, jurisprudential insight. This demonstrates the permissible strategy of using satire and rational critique to expose the emptiness of polytheistic practices and beliefs, establishing a methodology of DOA preaching. Based on dismantling the opposition's argument through logic and evidence before resorting to decisive action, the questioning acts as the final ikmat al-hujjah, establishing the proof on a basis of universal human reason, AKL. This establishes a legal principle that the logical demonstration of futility must precede the removal of shirk. Hikam, aphoristic interpretation. The true test of a supposed deity is its own self-sufficiency. If it consumes, it is consumed, and is therefore dependent. Worship only the independent, who is the source of all consumption and sustenance. Kanzul Iman, Quran. Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks, chapter 37, verse 92. What is the matter with you, that you do not speak? Abraham follows the challenge regarding sustenance with a challenge regarding consciousness and intelligence. What is the matter with you that you do not speak? Malakam, Latan Ikun. Linguistic analysis of Malakam, Latan. Akun. Tanakun, you speak. Reason refers not just to vocal sound, but to rational expression and communication, the sign of higher consciousness. This challenges the idol's lack of essential attributes: life, reason, and ability to respond. The phrase, Malakam, what is the matter with you, expresses astonishment at their inherent incapacity. This question serves to contrast the dead idols with the living, speaking, intelligent, and responding God, Al-Mutakabbir, the majestic, whose speech is the Quran itself. The repeated use of the negated verb latan ikun emphasizes the permanent and non-negotiable failure of the idols to possess the quality of knack speech reason. Sufi perspective on Tankik. The inability to speak signifies the idol's utter lack of spiritual power himma and spiritual connection wa'ila. For the sklik, the internal idol's greed, status, ego are similarly silent. They cannot guide, uplift, or respond when truly called upon. The Sufi path emphasizes the necessity of seeking guidance from Al-Maklik, the king who Tankik speaks through. His revelation in the hearts of his Aulic friends. The idol's silence confirms the absolute, exclusive nature of divine communication and response, known as istijiba. The Kalb Salam is a heart that is constantly not IQ speaking to its Lord through dhikr remembrance and manujet intimate conversation. The silence of the idols highlights the danger of internalizing the spiritual void. Theological significance of divine communication. The inability of the idols to speak is a proof that they cannot intercede, protect, or offer guidance. This strengthens the doctrine that prayer, dua, and communication must be directed exclusively to Allah, Maj, the all-hearing, and Al-Maj, the answerer. This physical demonstration is an appeal to the people's common sense, arguing that they worship entities less capable than themselves, thus negating the possibility of shif, intercession through them, and validating the unique attribute of Allah as Al-Kalkam, the speaker and source of all truth. Legal jurisprudential insight. This emphasizes the criteria for a legitimate object of worship. It must possess active, demonstrable attributes, including the ability to communicate, judge, and respond. The logical vacuum created by the idol's silence demands allegiance only to the Al-Qiyam, the ever-living, the self-sustaining. This argument provides the rational basis for the legal rejection of all inanimate objects as sources of spiritual authority. Hikam, aphoristic interpretation. True power speaks and responds. Anything silent and deaf to your prayer is a weight, not a lift. The silent idol leads to the silent heart. Devoid of dhikr and mifa, Quran, Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks, chapter 37, verse 93. Then he inclined towards them, striking them with the right hand. The confrontation moves from intellectual mockery to decisive physical action, symbolizing the spiritual necessity of complete renunciation. Then he inclined towards them, striking them with the right hand. Faraga alayhim. Arban Biel Yamshin. Linguistic analysis of carbon Biel Yamchin, carbon striking hitting, indicates a severe intentional blow. Biel Yamchin with the right hand is significant in Arabic culture, symbolizing power, strength, honor, and decisive oath intent. Abraham's action was not a momentary burst of anger, but a measured act of spiritual authority, executed with full strength and conviction, fulfilling the oath he had made earlier to deal with their idols, as mentioned in Surah Al-Anbib. Arshid and Wushatifin. Use of the right hand emphasizes the blessed and righteous nature of the action, signifying its execution according to divine command and prophetic excellence. Sufi perspective on Bar Biel Yamkin. This is the external manifestation of the greater Jihad al-Akbar. The sklik must use the full power of their will, their spiritual right hand, to strike down the internal idols of the nafs. This act symbolizes the complete abandonment, tajrid of all non-divine attachments, confirming that iqlob is not passive contemplation, but active spiritual struggle and decisive renunciation. Zud. The strength of the blow reflects the depth of the Kalbi Salkim's Taud. This demolition is the spiritual precursor to the complete purification of the heart, removing the layers of unrust caused by worldly attachment. This act is a test of sig truthfulness in the face of fear. Theological significance of action. This is a physical demonstration of a dissociation from shirk. The Prophet's action established a clear distinction between the worship of the Creator and the folly of worshipping creation. This act was sanctioned by Al-Kar the Subduer to prove the weakness of the false gods. Allah protected Abraham during this act, proving his name Awali, the protecting friend to the righteous, and demonstrating the impotence of the idols to defend even themselves. Legal, jurisprudential insight. This provides the legal basis for the permissible destruction of objects of shirk when the goal is to establish Taud and prevent the corruption of faith. It confirms that the DOA must, at times, proceed beyond mere rhetoric to decisive, impactful action to remove manifest evil munkar. Provided the means are justified by the prophetic mission and are conducted with prophetic wisdom, wikmah, this act is considered a preemptive measure to safeguard the integrity of belief. Hikam, aphoristic interpretation. True devotion is proved by the strength of the blow you deal to your idols, both external and internal. Let your Yamkain right hand be the decisive force for truth and the removal of spiritual contamination. The courage to act alone is the essence of tawakkul. Kanzul Iman, Quran, Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks. Chapter 37, verse 94. So the people came running to him. The people, having returned from their festival, immediately discovered the devastation and rushed back to confront Abraham. So the people came running to him. Fakabel, Ilahai, Yasifan. Linguistic analysis of Yasifan. The verb Yasifan means they came rushing, scrambling, or swarming, often used for hasty, disorganized movement. This captures their panic, outrage, and emotional, rather than rational, reaction to the challenge to their tradition. The contrast is stark. Abraham acted with calm, decisive wikmah wisdom, while they reacted with emotional, panicked haste, reflecting their lack of spiritual grounding. The use of the verb implies a lack of dignity in their response. A collective, irrational clamor, demonstrating Talakuv's lack of refinement. Sufi perspective on emotional reaction. The speed of their return and their emotional agitation Yasifan is a sign of Taqab fanatical adherence to tradition and spiritual ghafla heedlessness. The sklik is taught to remain calm and centered tamkin when confronted by the emotional chaos of the heedless world. The idolaters rush to defend wood and stone, demonstrating misplaced love mahabba gur, ilhiya, and attachment. The Kalb Salam remains unshaken by such external turmoil, maintaining sabr patience and sakina tranquility even under duress, as it relies on al-Wakil, the trustee. This rush signifies the externalization of their internal disorder. Theological significance of confrontation. The divine plan required this confrontation. Allah permitted the idol's destruction so that the people would be forced to acknowledge the idols' inability to defend themselves, thereby completing Abraham's huge proof. This illustrates Allah's role as al-Mubd, the initiator of events, creating the perfect setting for the final argument by allowing the temporary victory of Abraham's action. Their heedless rush contrasts with Abraham's calculated approach, highlighting the difference between divine guidance and human folly. Legal, jurisprudential insight. This highlights the reality that dua, involving radical change, will often be met with emotional backlash rather than rational debate, necessitating prophetic patience, cabr, and fortitude in the face of public outcry. It confirms the legal reality that emotion often overshadows logic in human response to challenges to ingrained tradition, necessitating a firm, patient response from the caller to Allah. The crowd's reaction serves as evidence of their complete devotion to the ritual over the rationale. Hikam, aphoristic interpretation. The speed of one's rush to defend falsehood reveals the depth of one's attachment to it. Guard your kalb from the rush of heedlessness, and rush only to the remembrance of Allah. Kanzul Iman, Quran, Surah As-Saffat, the arranged in ranks. Chapter 37, verse 95. He said, Do you worship what you yourselves carve? In the face of the angry rushing crowd, Abraham stands firm and delivers the irrefutable, ultimate logical argument. He said, "Do you worship what you yourselves carve?" Kuala ad buderna, matanaitan. Linguistic analysis of matan, itin. Tan, itin means you carve, sculpt, hew, emphasizing the people's active role as the creators of their own gods. The question, at buderna, do you worship, juxtaposes their act of creation with their subsequent act of worship, highlighting the devastating intellectual inconsistency. This single verse summarizes the rational case against all forms of human-made spirituality and idolatry. The emphasis is on the object of the action, what, further devaluing the idols. The present continuous tense of tanitin stresses that this act of fabrication is ongoing and constantly renewable. Sufi perspective on self-worship. This question cuts to the heart of shirk and its internal equivalent, self-worship. When a person carves their own god, whether out of stone or ego, they are essentially worshipping a reflection of their own efforts and desires. The sklik must realize that any religious practice rooted in self-glorification or mere tradition tackled is a form of tanwit carving idols. The path of iqlab demands the rejection of the gods one's nafs has carved for personal comfort or praise. This is the stage of complete tajur detachment and ta-dial-afel oneness of actions, where one recognizes all power and agency belongs to al-Khaliq alone, and one's own efforts are meaningless without divine tawfiq. Success. Theological significance of creation. This argument is the climax of Abraham's Tawhid message. How can the carver worship the carved? The very act of manufacturing their deities proves their inherent dependency and lack of divinity. This emphasizes the absolute perfection and uncreated nature of Allah. Allah, the first and al-Babiki, the everlasting. The people are forced to consider the profound difference between Khaliq, creator, and Makhluq, created. The ultimate failure of shirk lies in the contradiction between the worshipper and the object of worship. Legal jurisprudential insight. This verse is the ultimate argument for the priority of Tawhid uluhiyya, oneness of worship, establishing that all deities are objects of veneration crafted by human hands are inherently invalid. This principle is foundational to Islamic law regarding the prohibition of images and statues for worship. The legal necessity of destroying idols is confirmed by their complete lack of defensibility, validating the Prophet's actions sunnah faliyah. Hikam, aphoristic interpretation. You cannot be the maker and the worshipper. If you carve your God, you worship yourself. The perfection of Tawhid requires abandoning the products of your own hands and heart. Hadith, the primacy of actions and intentions. Prophet Abraham's decisive physical action to smash the idols, flowing directly from his sincere heart Kalb Salrom, illustrates the inseparable link between inward purity and outward action in ilm. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Whoever among you sees an evil munkar, let him change it with his hand. If he cannot, then with his tongue. If he cannot, then with his heart, and that is the weakest of faith." Related in Sahih Muslim. Hadith contextualization and analysis, Sufi emphasis. Action with the hand. Abraham perfectly exemplifies the highest level of faith, changing the munkar evil with his hand decisive action. This was the physical manifestation of his internal spiritual readiness and the completion of his prophetic duty, fulfilling the condition of ihsan, excellence. The sklik and the munkar. For the sklik, the first and greatest munkar, is the shirk of the heart and the internal idolatry of the nafs. Abraham's barb, by el-yamkin, striking with the right hand, is the spiritual imperative for the seeker to use the strongest possible will to change the evil of the commanding soul, nafs al-amra, and establish the complete tawhid within the heart. The spiritual purification of the kalb is the ultimate munkar to be removed, leading the soul to the station of nafs al-mukmaina, the contented soul. We conclude part 37.19. We saw Prophet Abraham's prophetic cunning. Then he inclined towards their gods and said, "Will you not eat? What is the matter with you that you do not speak?" leading to his decisive act. Then he inclined towards them, striking them with the right hand. When the people rushed back, so the people came running to him, he delivered the final, undeniable truth. He said, "Do you worship what you yourselves carve?" May Allah grant us the fortitude of Abraham to smash the idols of our ego and uphold Tawhid in action and thought. O Allah Al-Kar, the subduer, grant us the Wikma wisdom to understand the IFK falsehood of worldly attachments. Inspire us to use our full strength by Al-Yamkain to strike down the idols our nafs has carved tan. Protect us from the ghafla of the people who rush to defend illusion Yasifan, and make us worshippers of you, the uncreated. Al-Bibiki, the everlasting alone, Amin.